Hey Cedar Run, I'm Will Glass, and want to talk to you guys today about grief. I feel like right now there's a tremendous amount of pain and grief in our country, whether it's related to the events that have unfolded in Minneapolis and then around our country, where people's hearts are broken and upset, or whether it's the loss of normalcy that has come from COVID-19, or the more traditional sense of grief, which is the loss of a loved one or someone dear to you. Just last year, I lost my dad to cancer. And in losing my dad, there was moments where I grieved his loss before he was gone. Specifically, I remember putting my foot on a fence post at a park, and my dad walked up right beside me and kind of same position, both leaning on the fence post, talking about whatever we were talking about. I honestly don't remember anymore. It wasn't important, and what I do remember specifically was thinking in that moment that with my kids running around behind us and my dad and I just chatting, that the number of those opportunities that I would have going forward were slim to none. That would be the last time, in all likelihood, that I got to spend time in nature just chatting about the day with my dad. And that was a tough moment. And when I see a picture that was taken of that moment, it brings back all of those terrible feelings. As Dad's cancer got progressively worse, he became emaciated and suffered in a lot of ways at the hands of the cancer that was consuming him. It was the evening that he passed, the grief that I experienced leaning on that fence post was far, far less than it was in that moment. In that moment, Dad was with God. Dad was no longer fighting against the cancer. Dad didn't have to suffer or feel embarrassed about, the decline of his life. He just had to go be with Jesus. And so it was sad, and the whole family cried. But at the same time, it didn't feel like grief. It felt more like celebration. And I think what's important to realize in those moments is that God was in control. And one of my favorite stories about God being in control in the Bible comes from the book of Job. Job has that, great story of being a righteous man, a wealthy man, has a tremendous family. It's all taken away from him. And after his, trials and tribulations amongst his friends, questioning who he was and his righteousness, Job gets a chance to speak with God and see that God is still firmly in control, and that the loss of family and money and power and stature within your community don't matter as long as God is in control. when we think about grief, it's easy to get wrapped around the sadness and those hard emotions. But there's a path away from grieving, or at least a path that grieving doesn't have to be all sadness with no hope. I love that God is in control. And I love knowing that my dad is with God now. I think it's important to realize that the things that happen to us don't happen outside of God's plan. And so whether or not we like them, or whether or not they're advantageous to us, or whether or not they break our heart, God's going to use it all for His glory. So as you grieve in whatever things that bring upon hardship to you, please think about where God is in all of it and what His plans might be. I think that's a very centering thought to have. And to me personally, it helped tremendously to balance my mental position after that loss. It was a lot easier to love and lean into God knowing He was in control. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I thank you so much for your time. Bye.